Hello, everybody, and welcome to this session today on earned income. My name is David Page. I'm from Triceratops Training, and we've been brought together by SAVs for the next 45 minutes, maybe an hour, talking about earned income. So I guess we should really start by thinking where we're going in this session. Well, first of all, we're going to introduce what we actually mean by earned income and then go through the different bullets on this slide. Now, I think my aim for this session is to, well, see you at the other end with a bit of increased knowledge, some confidence in having a look into this in more detail, and maybe a clearer idea of your next steps in relation to earned income if you think it's appropriate for your organizations. So without further ado, let's go and launch into the first section then. What are our options when it comes to making money in our organizations? Now, if I say charities, I'm just using that as a catch-all term. It doesn't really matter what legal entity you have when it comes to earned income. So if you're a CIC or a grassroots organization, just consider yourself covered by the term charity, because that's just the vernacular that I use. So what are our options of generating income? Well, there are lots of different options, aren't there? You've got major donors. You've got trusts and grants that are potentially an option for you. Community fundraising that is open there as well. But for the purposes of today, I want us to wind back the clock to 2012. And back in 2012, NCVO put out an article. And I thought that article was just brilliant for explaining exactly what earned income is. And I've linked it on this slide, and you can get these slides from SAVs should you want them. So you've got gifts, you've got grants, you've got contracts as well. But today what we're thinking about is that fourth column, the one that says open market. We're thinking about how we can generate income through a competitive process on the open market. In other words, we're putting our entrepreneurs' hats on. We're channeling our inner Richard Bransons, and actually we're going out there and we're competing with businesses. And businesses have advantages over us, but we also have advantages over businesses. When we're thinking about earning our income, you're a business that needs to cover every cost that you have. Otherwise, you're not going to make any money. With charities, that's not actually true. Yes, we do want it to cover costs, and we do want it to generate income for us, not cost us money. But we also have other elements of fundraising that we can also lean on, and having a diverse portfolio of income really is the best way to sustainability for smaller and for larger charitable organizations. Nobody is going to make a donation to a business without expecting it to generate a return for them. I'm going to invest £60 in Nike and I'm going to get a pair of trainers in return. But that's not quite the narrative with charities, because people donate to charities all the time, don't they? So we've potentially got this goodness that we can explore. But there's no getting around the fact that if we're putting our products on the open markets, we are competing with the big boys. And I think the first foundational thing that you need to understand is that we're playing here with a different set of rules to normal fundraising. And actually, we're not talking about fundraising anymore. because we're not asking people anymore. We're selling to people. We're earning through them. And whilst there is goodwill held in store for us, if we're not competitive, we're going to fail. And we need to get things right. And we'll talk about that later on in the session. So, this is a new challenge. This is a different challenge, but it's a challenge that has merit. And because it is different, you might find it fresh and new and interesting. And actually, if it works well, it's really personally rewarding, actually, to see things ticking over. So, we're generating income through a competitive process on the open market. What are we going to do? That's where we need to go next. What can we offer as this product? And product is a catch-all term that we use for anything that you're offering, be it a service, an actual product, whatever it might be. Well, there's kind of three ways of doing this. I was trying to find a fancier word than ways, but maybe way is the best one, or three ways or categories maybe that you could explore. Maybe that's a better way of describing it. So what's often the best and is often the easiest to implement as well is to monetize what you already do if you can. So, for example, if you are a community arts project, you could charge people £2 for attending a session. Or maybe you could hold an annual exhibition and sell off the artwork that has been created with the proceeds going to the charity or being split between the charity and the artist. That would be an example of monetizing a project that's already happening. Or what you could do is you can take what you do and morph it for a commercial audience. So maybe, for example, you're a counseling charity and you create a corporate counseling package that you can offer to businesses for their staff to access. Taking what you do and morphing it for a commercial audience. Or then you can take a bigger risk, something a bit more substantial, a bit more exciting, a bit more scary, maybe. And you can try something completely new. Maybe you're a youth work charity and you help young people into employment. So you open up a bike repair shop or you open up a cafe and you have those staffed by young people who you're trying to help into employment. Gives them experience, doesn't it? Maybe something completely new and fresh. All of those examples are actually based on charities that have operated in Glasgow, which is where I'm recording this session. They're viable for those organisations. But of course, the shape and the direction of your earned income is entirely dependent on the context of what you actually do. There's no kind of one size fits all solution. But I'm really pleased you're tuning into this because earned income, according to a few studies that have come out recently, is the largest kind of slice of the income pie for UK charities. A couple of studies have actually said over 50% of all money that comes into charities in the UK is earned, is generated. And that goes from, selling T-shirts in a merch store online through to entering into formal delivery contracts with multinationals, and it's a stream that's gonna, I think, just carry on gathering momentum and gathering importance as it kind of aligns with the capitalist juggernaut that we're all riding. And it feeds the changing social desire or the hunger to do good through the business that we conduct. Why just buy something that makes you feel good when you can buy something that makes you feel good and also makes the world a better place. It's why greenwashing is becoming more of an issue. It's why businesses are partnering with charities, because it enhances their social credentials, and that enables them to increase their bottom line. And we have a little problem with that, because the lines between charities and businesses are starting to blur. We've been brought together by SAVs, who's a charity. They are exclusively a charity. Triceratops Training, we're actually a business legally. We're a CIC. But we're a CIC that, or a business, should I say, that doesn't have its primary aim being to generate profit, though we need to. Well, we need to pay the bills, that's for sure. Our primary aim is just like a charity, to make the world a better place, to bring around positive change. And as more and more customers and staff are demanding that their profit-making businesses that they're working with or doing business with have ethical credentials, businesses are opening their eyes to the commercial potential of delivering change alongside profit. In other words, they're starting to step on our toes. But you know what the other thing is? By earning income, we're also stepping on their toes. And there's plenty of fish in the sea whose toes we can step on. Yeah, that analogy needs a bit of work, doesn't it? And if you find that you get stuck in earned income and it's maybe doesn't quite work for your organization, but you still want to explore the potential of entering into and benefiting from the business world, then potentially corporate partnerships might be a better way forward for you. And you can explore that at your leisure as well. So you could monetize what you do. You could commercialize and morph what you do for a commercial audience. Or we could start something new and completely fresh. But why do we want to do it? Well, we want to do it because we want to unlock the positives. We want to generate income. And as we've just kind of seen or heard, the possibility of generating income is strong. It's there. And also you can spend that income on whatever you want to, which is dead nice, because it can be core income for you, which is a bit of a challenge sometimes from other sources, especially if you're over reliant on grant work. You can also open up new opportunities through increased networks, relationships, and audiences we've got on the slide here. People start talking, you get new customers instead of just service users. Maybe those customers could also be donors. Oh, that's an exciting thought, isn't it? And then the bottom bullet point is really very important: sustainability. It's going to hopefully help your financial sustainability, your financial resilience as you look to move forward as an organization. But, of course, there's a but. Wouldn't it be nice if there wasn't a but? Risk. This is new, and therefore it's a bit more risky. And so you need to not be scared of that, but you need to consider that. The biggest one I've found in my work with small organizations is that skills gap. It's a different set of skills we're tapping into. We're not fundraising, we're selling. And that kind of entrepreneurial little spark that some people have in abundance and others really don't is quite often absent in charities. And of course, you've got the whole idea that actually you're maybe slightly changing the dynamics of how you're working. And that can be a little problem as well. Can be a problem with volunteers, for example. Can be a problem with service users who trust you. Not seen that very much, but it can be. And it's important to know about possible issues before deciding to go and jump into something. Now, there's another issue or a couple. They're not really issues. They're more, well, I call them tightropes. You have to do a bit of tightrope walking in earned income, because you've got an ethical dilemma potentially of pricing people out of your service. We don't want to do that. Just because they can't afford what we have Doesn't mean that they can't. Do you know what I mean? It's hard, isn't it? Triceratops training, we try to make our training free, but we still need to make income to pay the bills. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. So that's a tightrope that you need to walk. And there's another one as well, which happens when this starts to work for you and you get success with it, is that I've seen it. You start to unconsciously prioritize money over prioritizing bringing around that positive change. Um, it's just something you need to be aware of. And it's something that, if the time comes, you need to be concerned about. But having a good supportive network around you, internally and externally to your organization, should help address those, or at least shine a light on those when the time is right for that. So, how are we gonna unearth some ideas? Um, For some of you, this might be dead simple. For others, it requires a bit more thinking and maybe rewiring, actually, of how we think. Because we need to think entrepreneurially to come up with ideas. So, the very first thing that I would recommend you do is find somebody to help you. Can you engage with an entrepreneurial person to help you and advise you? That doesn't necessarily mean they're running their own business. It may well mean that they're running their own business, but it might not mean that. If you've got somebody who's maybe got a job as like an innovation manager or a product development manager, something like that, somebody who's on that kind of ideas train for a living and thinking through things, that can be the kind of person who's going to be really helpful for you. They've got that entrepreneurial mindset, which is where you shift from seeing problems as a bad thing to shifting to see problems as an opportunity to explore something new. That's the mindset of an entrepreneur. So having somebody to mentor you or help you through this process is going to be really useful. And just about all self-made people who do podcasts and write books will say they've got a mentor who helped them through, who helped give them a leg up. But also that shift in mindset through to seeing problems to seeing opportunities is really useful as well. Also, surrounding yourself by people who aren't just experts, just people who have ideas, who can see things from slightly different perspectives to you. That can be useful when it comes to generating ideas as well. And when I first stepped foot into doing kind of consultancy, like one-to-one support of charities, I engaged with this charity who needed to diversify their income because they were far too reliant on grants. It's a very familiar story in my world. Um, and we had a chat on the phone, and well, they were struggling to come up with ideas of how to do this. But then I went and met with them in person. I had a little look around their facility, and I had a really good chat with the CEO. It was a 2 cup of tea chat. It was a big one. And what I did, I just went to the pub afterwards, got myself a pint, and got myself my trusty notebook out and just had a think from an external perspective. And I came up with 20 different ideas. I stopped at 20 for where they could potentially go to generate income. 15 of those ideas were not any good. Not because I thought they were no good, but because in the context and the reality of that organization, which I had only really had a glimpse into, they just wouldn't work. But there were little nuggets of gold in the other ones, in those 5 ideas that they could go and pursue. And I was chatting to the new CEO a while ago. And one of those ideas they've really run with and grabbed the bull by the horns, and it's paying dividends for them, which is really good. Makes me feel good that I've actually been useful. That's for sure. So asking around for ideas is really going to help. The whole idea of learning falls into that as well. And don't take it a setback if a task has failed or a project has failed. Learn from that. And if you're learning, you're not failing. And see risk as something that is I like to call risk a plan B. If something goes wrong, have a plan B there that can rectify that. And the last one's important, actually. You need to realize that flexibility and being agile is even more important in businesses than it is in charities. And it's flipping important in charities. You often need to bend your ideals to meet that niche that's there. Perfect example is actually this session here. Our earned income training is usually between 2 and 4 hours long. We're squeezing this into 45 minutes today. Why? Because that's what was needed. And so we're happy to do that because we're going to flex to meet the needs that are out there. It's also why it's kind of recorded and it's going to be coming at you quite heavily. You might want to press pause and go and get yourself a cup of tea at this point. So we need to think like a business, and that's going to help us generate ideas. There's more that we can do to help in the generating of idea, though. And that is to divide your thinking up into these different categories that we talked about earlier, but then also divide that up a little bit more. So you consider dividing it up a little bit more in these bullet points here. What can you do around your mission to potentially generate income? This is where we take what we do and we charge for it. So can we charge service users to support their or their support networks? Sorry. Can we charge the people that refer folks to us? Can we take what we do and offer it to the general public, though that's slightly blurring our lines into commercializing what we do? So think about your mission and things that are involved with that, your activities. Then there's competency. That's what you're good at, the skills that you have. Can you sell those skills somehow? Can you use them to train people? Can you create an accreditation? Can you provide potentially consultancy services? One charity that I worked with had the luxury of an in-house accounting team. There was 1.5 of them spread over 3 people. But they had finance skills. And so that charity opened the doors to other charities that were smaller, didn't have those skills, and said, we'll look after your payroll for you for a fee. That was using competency. And then you've got the last one, your assets. The things what you have. Can you generate income from them? Do you have a subscription to a fancy piece of accounting software that you could potentially invite others to use for a fee? That's maybe a slightly obscure one, but do you have a room you can rent out? Lots of church congregations, charities all over the UK, they look after large buildings, which are expensive to keep, to maintain and upkeep, and they let out rooms. I know of a charity that invests its surplus legacy income in shares, so it then generates a passive income for the charity, and that is a really strange way, but it is earned income. So what is it that you have available at your fingertips already that you can monetize with minimal disruption? Because when we're monetizing what we already do, that's what we're looking for. Minimal disruption. It's easy to step into. That's the strength of it. But then commercializing something that you do takes that and puts more of the focus on generating the cash and the money. It's usually more complicated, but the rewards can be higher. You know, could you run children's birthday parties which feature the animals that are in your animal shelter? Could you provide training or consultancy based on specialist knowledge in mental health in a different context, maybe, than you provide it to your service users normally? Could you morph your individual membership into some kind of business accreditation? Mission, competency, assets, thinking through how to commercialize what you've got, how to offer that to a commercial audience is going to help you come up with ideas. And that's going to likely take more work than just monetizing what you're doing already. But it's probably going to ease the worry that people have that we can't charge the people who are coming because then they might not be able to access our services. Commercializing, that is much, much less of a worry for you. And then something new, something entirely new. What about opening a charity shop on the high street? Rents are really low at the moment, aren't they? What about selling items that have been donated to you on eBay? What about doing a road show? Or maybe creating some kind of package that you could offer to local schools or private schools because they've got money, or colleges or universities potentially. It doesn't really matter how you categorize your ideas. This is just to help you generate those ideas. But if something is completely new, it's really important to consider if it fits inside the boundaries of your purpose as a charity. New things have got the strength of being very exciting, but they can also get confusing and they can muddy the waters. A youth charity that I engaged with, they had some land. It was an old charity and they had land, and they leased out that land and got money back from rent, and that was a way of earning income. But that was separated from the charity into a separate company because it was becoming more and more tricky to manage. And in separating it off, it also made the charity look more authentic, we'll say, on paper when it came to the assets of the organization and the liabilities and things like that. The main decision was the headaches it was causing for the leadership, but there were other reasons for doing it as well. It's another charity that I know, and they work in Africa, bringing solar powered lights to communities that live off grid. And they do that by partnering with in country partners, individuals who have their own business entities, and they get these solar lights and they sell them at an agreed profit margin to these different the families that need these lights. It makes sense to keep that separate. It's also empowering for the people who have got those little micro businesses as well. That charity actually also has a separate trading arm because they do other things that generate money as well. And why have they done that? Because when they looked at their context, it made sense for them. It reduced the risk profile of the charity in having that as a separate entity. Now, if you need advice on that kind of thing, your accountant is actually going to be your first port of call. They might not be able to take you the whole way to making a decision, but they will either be able to give you advice or they'll be able to signpost you to other places to get advice in that. But in the end, the decision on that will be yours. So something new. It's a possibility. Let's press the fast forward button. And I'm just going to assume now that you've got a lovely, big, long list of ideas. I say a big, long list of ideas. Maybe you don't, but I'm hoping that you will have. But we don't really want a lovely, big, long list of ideas. What we want is a short list of really good ideas, because quite a lot of those ideas on your list are just not really going to be very viable. They're too expensive. You just haven't got the expertise or the capacity to even think about that at the moment. Maybe they're just really boring. Maybe they're going to cause too much disruption to what you do already. Now, don't delete those ideas. Just cross them out so you know you're not going to address them, because it might circumstances might change and they become relevant. And it's good to have them, backed up so you don't have to go and do all that thinking again, or not do it too much anyway. So you've got these ideas, and you've got maybe a short list of ideas, and you need to figure out which one is the best one to move forward. And we do that in 2 stages. So the first stage that I would suggest you do is you create yourself a decision-making matrix. Now, I'm a bit of a geek, and I love using these in everyday life as well as in work purposes. So here's an example. At the start of the year, I had to get a new car because my old car broke, which caused me tears. And what I did was create a decision-making matrix. I had all of the criteria written down that I wanted from a car. So things like I would like it to be electric or a plug-in hybrid. I would like it to have 7 seats. I would like it to be fast. I would like it to look good. I would like it to have very cheap road tax and be good on fuel. Cheap to insure. And you've got all of these categories, criteria, written down and if it ticked all of those boxes, we've got the dream car. Now, some of those criteria were more important than others, and so they carried with them a higher weighting. In other words, if they ticked that box, they got more points because they're more important. And I did this for 20 different cars. And what we did is you total up the score. Now, you might assume that the car that scored the most points was the car that I went and got. But that wasn't the case. And this is maybe a slight maturity in handling a decision-making matrix. There were 3 cars that came out with the same top score, within a point or two of each other, so pretty much exactly the same. 2 of those cars were just too expensive. They ticked every other box, but I couldn't afford them. A stretch potentially, but there was no point stretching that far. So I only had one option. But that one option made me sad. I didn't want that car. So the car that I ended up getting was actually option number 4. And I compromised on that because I didn't realize that there was something that didn't fit that criteria that hadn't been factored into the score. And that was, did I actually like it? See, when you're investing your time and you're making a serious decision like this, it needs to be something that maybe doesn't excites, maybe not the right word, but engages or entices you would be the right word. It needs to keep your attention because it's going to take effort to pull this off. And what you'll probably find if you do a decision-making matrix is you've got one that's a clear winner. And then you've got a couple of others that are fairly close behind it. And then you've got everything else. What we want to do now is not just rely on this, though, because this is mainly made of assumptions. We need to go and put a bit of weight behind our decisions and make them informed. And there's various things that we need to do when it comes to being in that position to make a decision, and that is we need to do a bit of research on your very top 2 or 3 options. The first thing we need to start thinking about and researching is, well, let's think about our customers. Let's find out about our customers and then see how our options apply to customers. So what are we trying to find out? Well, the first thing that we're looking for is we want to know what they kind of look like. What demographics are in play here? Where do they live? Or where do they operate if they're a business? Are they in a particular income bracket? Do they have a particular market or interest? Do they have a particular education level even? What we're looking for are the themes that link these potential customers together. After that, we're thinking, right, well, what is it that they actually need? That's where we understand the bend and the flex. In official business theory, this is called looking for pain points, but I don't like that terminology. I prefer thinking about, right, what is it that our product can solve for these people? What's their need? And then the third thing you think about, or the third question, is to think about their behaviors. How do they typically buy this product or decide to buy this product or service, right enough, when it's offered elsewhere? Is it online? Is it in person? Do they test it first or do they just jump straight in and buy it? Is it a one-off purchase or is it maybe a repeat subscription? That kind of thing. These three questions are the big ones. These are the ones that you have to do when you're researching customers. But there are lots more that you can do to add value as well. We've got a few examples on the slide here. You might want to create a customer profile of your like average customer, or a few of those if you're serving kind of distinctly different customers. That can help in your decision-making process. You might want to sit down and plan out the journey that customer will need to go through from hearing about your product for the very first time, or not even knowing about it right enough, through to them making a purchase, getting the receipt, and hopefully moving on to make a second purchase. Plotting out the journey that they go through can be really useful as well. And of course, thinking about how you're going to get feedback. And you can get feedback before you launch the product, because if you've got an idea, you can talk to people who are going to be your potential customers and say, how does that sound to you? The better you know your customers, the better and more informed your decisions are going to be. So we've researched our customers. We can go back to our matrix and have a little think. Do those ideas still stand up? Do we need to change anything? After we've done the customers, we move on to thinking about researching the market analysis. It sounds very complicated and very kind of highfalutin, but it's not really. We're just having a look and see what other products are similar to ours, who's competing against us, and we are competing. What we're thinking about unearthing here is, what do our competitors offer? Who are their customers? Because they probably look like ours. How do they bring their product to market? How do they promote it? And how much money do they make? Listen, it's a quite important one to understand as well. Go and do your research online for doing this. You can even become customers of your competitors if you want as well. And then there are tools like SEMrush, Google Trends, Answer the Public that can provide another point of view for you on those on the market as well, and the products that are on the market. Now, once you've got a good idea of what's going on, and you might know that already, by the way, you then need to just change your thinking and think about, right, what makes our offer different? What makes it unique? So Triceratops Training, our uniqueness is that we're the only training organisation in the whole of the UK that solely focuses on small charities. We're the only organisation that does that because there's not much money to be made. That's why we in ourselves are a very small organisation as well. But it does make us different. We understand the struggles that you go through, and that is a massive thing when it comes to providing training that is relevant. You don't have teams running around doing stuff. It's quite often just you and a couple of other folks on the payroll. Maybe even nobody's on the payroll yet. What makes you unique? Maybe you're bringing something new to a geographical area. Nobody else in Southend is doing this kind of thing. Maybe you're gonna, leverage the good that comes from your charitable activities when people do business with you. Maybe nobody else is as informed as you are. You can use this Venn diagram that we've got on the slide here to help kind of figure that out. And what you're really looking to pitch, and where you're probably going to be able to make the most cash, is that little overlap between your offer, which is the yellow circle, and customer needs, which is the black circle. Now, where they overlap with competitor offers, which is the grey circle, you can still generate income in there. It's just probably not going to be quite as easy as if you have something unique and bespoke. That's what we're really looking to uncover. And then, of course, we wind back the clock. We go back to our decision matrix, those 3 ideas, and think, right, how does that affect it? Which one now comes to the top of the list? And there's one more thing that we need to be doing research on. There's actually a lot of things we could do research on, but you don't have the capacity to do that. So we'll focus on the ones that are really important. And that is, we need to research and think about our product. It's not so much research because we've got the ideas. It's maybe more refining what we're doing, actually. Now, you might have heard of the 4 Ps of marketing. And if you did marketing or business at, GCSE or in college or university or anything, you definitely would have heard of them before, because they're really important, actually. We need to find out what makes, or what will make, the right product. We need to be selling the right thing. What is the right price to be selling that at? We need to figure that out, don't we? Where is the right place to be selling it or promoting it? Because we need to also be finding out, how is the best way of promoting it? How are we going to let people know? So the product needs to be right. In other words, it needs to be right for the people who want to buy it, but it also needs to be right for us. We need to be able to bring it to market without too much stress and too much stress and too much distraction from what we're actually doing already, making the world a better place. But it needs to be right for the people who are buying it. Otherwise, they're not going to buy it. The price also needs to be right. Now, the right price isn't always the cheapest price, but we do need to generate profit from it, or generate income from it, should I say. If you're going for a lower price, you're going to need more and more people to buy it to bring in a decent amount of income. If you're going for a higher price, well, that's not true, but it might affect the ability of people to buy it. And actually, I think product and price are the 2 that it's important to get right first. Because place and promotion, if it's a startup business, you don't have this luxury. But because you're a charity and you've got other streams of income that can help tide you over, place and promotion can be discovered over time. But if you can get all of your ducks in a row, first of all, that's a great idea. You can take this further, actually, if you get a bit excited about your P things, and it's actually been extended to the 9 Ps of marketing now, and that can help you refine your product further. And if you do have maybe a tricky trustee board, or you need to get investment, you might want to go and do that a bit further, just to add a little bit more thinking, a bit more quality into what we need to do next. And that is into a proposal that we're going to use to secure support. So we're going to press the fast forward button again. And by this stage in our kind of thinking, we have hopefully got a good idea that we've researched and we've refined. And what we've got is, we have confidence that this is a fairly good shot. This is going to work for us. We don't quite know how yet, but all signs are pointing to yes. And so there's this one last piece of the puzzle, one last piece of the puzzle, and that is getting buy-in from stakeholders. Now, stakeholders is a word just for somebody who is invested in some way into this project. Maybe they're professionally invested, maybe they're emotionally invested, maybe they're financially invested as well. Your trustees, they're going to be the ones that say, go to this, probably. So you need to get their buy-in. Maybe you'll need to raise a bit of investment to do something. And if you're doing something new, that's probably going to be a thing. And so you need to get their support. You need to get their buy-in to this idea. And the best and most professional way you can do this is to create a business proposal. And in creating one of those, if you just follow the bullet points that are on this slide, there's kind of like, sections of that business proposal, you'll be able to hopefully walk through it just fine. One thing I will say, though, is that you need to remember that the people who you're trying to get on board, your audiences for this proposal, are likely going to want different things. So if you are presenting to different folks, remember that you're going to need to spend a little bit of time, and I do mean a little bit of time, tailoring your messaging for each recipient, for each audience. That's going to give you the best chance of convincing them that this is good if you tailor it instead of just using a blanket proposal. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a report. It hits each of these bullet points, and it's going to give a good overview of the position. And actually, you can, it's good to remember in this, if this is filling you with a bit of fear, that the people who are going to be getting on board with this likely already know a bit about what's going on. Maybe they've been consulted in this stage where you're gathering ideas. Maybe they gave you the decree to explore this and watch this video in the first place. Or maybe actually they've provided a bit of help in the research phase and a bit of maybe entrepreneurial spirit to the project as well. So you're not often going from completely cold, but you want to take the confidence that you have in this and translate it over to them. So they're confident, because if they say, yes, go and do it, or if they say, yes, here's my money, go and make that work, they're starting to share in the risk with you, because if it goes wrong, it's not just your fault, it's also theirs. They stand to lose from it, and so they want it to work. You've got their attention, actually. And you go and present it to them. I would always recommend presenting it rather than just sending a document round, because your eyes, when you're talking about things, and your excitement that you might have about this, or your just firm belief that it's going to work, is going to speak through your body language much louder than it will speak through a few pages of A4. And of course you do that, they're all just going to say yes. They might ask you some tricky questions. Answer them if you can. If you don't know the answers, go away, find it out, because answering that question is probably going to be useful for you in the long run once you do get sign off. And once you've got it, you're ready to go. All that happens now is that you manage this just like you would any other project. Makes it sound dead simple, doesn't it? So that's brought us to the end of this little whirlwind tour of earned income. How to generate these ideas, some of the barriers that you need to watch out for, the good points, the negative points as well. Also, how to refine and make the decision on the very right way, method, idea for you to settle on to develop your earned income. Earned income is not for every charity. It's not. But it seems to be a possibility for most. And so I hope that this little session will stand you in good stead. If you need any additional support, please do come and contact us at Triceratops Training. We've got a link to the website there. We can help you with your earned income, or thinking about other fundraising efforts or strategic efforts if you want. So please don't be a stranger and come along and say hello to us via an email or a contact form. That's the way to do it. I am on LinkedIn, though. You can come and look at David Page and Triceratops Training on LinkedIn, and you'll find me. Brilliant. Thank you so much for the work that you do in making the world a better place. And hopefully we shall see you again. Bye now.